Welcome to the Maasto Fitness Podcast. Today, in episode 31, we are talking about muscle imbalances. So, this is a quick hit podcast where we keep them short and to the point, focusing on the things you can do off the bike to race faster and safer. At Maasto Fitness, we work with racers remotely in the real world. Many have a life full of commitments and don't have a lot of time to train on the bike or ride. So we provide training off the bike, so days on the bike, whether riding or racing, are faster and safer. And like I said, today we are talking about muscle imbalances. And a muscle imbalance is something that can happen to any athlete, even an athlete who's racing, an athlete who's into running, an athlete who's into ball sports. It can happen to any athlete. And oftentimes, how that happens is improper strength techniques. So the negative side is we develop one side of the muscle too much, and we create an imbalance which can lead to injury. And before I go any further, let me just talk real quick about what a muscle imbalance is. So, for example, your arm, you have your bicep and your tricep. Your bicep is like for an arm curl. So you're shortening your arm, going from arm straight up to a curl. So your fist is almost touching your shoulder. So when you are going up, that is only working your bicep. So what can happen is like you just do way too many bicep curls and you don't do enough with your triceps. You're not doing tricep dip, tricep extensions, whatever it may be. And so you get a really developed bicep, which this can happen to people who go to the gym kind of just to be fit. This happens to people sometimes because you want big biceps, you want to look ripped, you want to look fit, and you can stand in front of that mirror and do curls and see your biceps getting bigger and look and flex your arms and see your biceps getting bigger. But what happens is you're not working your tricep, you're not keeping the system balanced, you're making one side too strong. So for us, like racers, we need functional fitness. If we were to do that, we're creating muscle imbalance because if you think about when you're on the bike, it's a constant push-pull on those handlebars. So sometimes, like just really simple, you're accelerating, you're trying to keep yourself on the bike, you're trying to keep yourself from sliding back. You're braking, you're trying to keep yourself from going forward. Each of those are going to be working those muscles in the arms differently. You're going to be working the triceps, going to be working the biceps, triceps, biceps, kind of on acceleration and brake in the most simple way. And we all know riding a dirt bike, racing a dirt bike, much more complex than that. Lots of movements going on, often working outside of one plane at a time. So, we're working on balance left to right and front to back as we're trying to manage everything. So we want good, even, balanced muscles. So first, before we go any deeper, if you're in the gym and you're doing your own thing, think about that. Am I working both sides of this muscle? Am I working my quads and my hamstrings? Am I working my core all the way around? Am I working my pecs and my upper back, making everything balanced and even? Kind of just like those biceps. Presses, that's another one that some people can be guilty of, just doing presses and not doing anything to work the upper back and create that muscle imbalance, and also just can create a system that's far too tight. If you spend too much time working on the front, your shoulders kind of become a little bit hunched and you a little bit over and tight because everything's so developed in the front and pulled so tight that we don't have a good balance front to back because we're not doing things on the back. We're not opening up our body as we should properly. So keep that in mind as well. But let's dive into a little bit deeper here about muscle imbalances and the reasons why we don't want them and we want to avoid them. First, which I kind of already went into, is the risk of injury. Imbalances put undue stress on joints and other muscles and increase the likelihood of injury, particularly strains, sprains, and tears. For example, overdeveloped quadriceps paired with weak hamstrings can result in greater chance of knee injury. And we all know knee injuries are something that can happen to us planting the foot wrong or get off on the bike. So having that system as balanced as possible, super important. Next, a big one, reduced performance. Imbalances limit power, efficiency, and overall effectiveness, just taking our athletic performance down. So it could just simply mean that we have a slower to react time, or we're not as stable when we're on the bike because one side is too developed, and the other side is underdeveloped. Next, poor posture. We know on the bike, got to have the right posture. We got to be in the right position, that attack position, the position where we're like ready to go and react to the terrain and what's going on in front of us. So if we don't have a properly balanced body, we're not able to hold that athletic position. Maybe you can get into it initially or a couple times, but as the day goes on, those over and underdeveloped muscles are going to kind of make their way through, and we're not going to be able to hold the position we want on the bike as long as we should. Next, altered movement patterns, kind of going a little bit deeper with that. So, that muscle imbalance could make us not be able to move on the bike on the way we want, react the way we want, because simply put, sometimes an overdeveloped muscle is going to be pulling too much on ligaments, tendons, and our body's not able to move through the correct range of motions when we have one side that's overdeveloped and one side that's underdeveloped. So, not able to really do what we want to coming into a quarter, coming out of a corner. And that kind of will create bad habits over time, and you kind of get stuck in that rut of not treating, not being able to react the way you should, and then the habits get worse. And sometimes we're not even getting an injury from that. We don't even realize what's going on. That's kind of how deep it can go sometimes with muscle imbalances. And now the biggest one that I see is just simply fatigue and overuse. One muscle group is weaker, the stronger muscle overcompensates, leading to overuse, fatigue, and problems down the road. Because that overworked muscle, overdeveloped muscle, has to work so hard. The underdeveloped muscle is not able to do its work, and we just run into fatigue. Like maybe the quads are too developed, and we just run into a lot of fatigue and we're not able to stand out of the seat as long as we should. Or same deal, overdeveloped pecs. Right, we're not able to get up over the bike the way we should, and eventually we're going to have to kind of sit back and relax our shoulders a little bit because we just can't hold that position because the pecs are so developed, but the upper back, nothing is developed. So it's really important to work all the muscles in the system every time you train. And Maasto Fitness, anyone who's an athlete already knows the program. That's how it works for us. We work whole systems all the time, make sure that we're keeping the body balanced, and then also incorporating flexibility and mobility, because that's a big part of properly balanced muscles, is also making sure that they're able to move through a proper range of motion, and not have any pain, and be able to move the body correctly through each range of motion. Now, muscle imbalances, like I said, happens so many endurance athletes, but I feel like it can happen to us racers really easily, especially if we're only on the bike and we're just push pull in one certain way. It's easy to run into overuse issues, or I'm sorry, overdeveloped issues on one side of the body, which ultimately will just, the biggest one I see again is fatigue and overuse, which is never ideal. And then one thing I want to mention just before we wrap this one up is the core. Sometimes when athletes, racers think of the core, they think of just the front, just like that fantasy ideal six pack. But really, the core wraps all the way around your body, and we use our core all the time for racing. I mean, it connects the top of the body and the lower part of the body. So core workout is more than just doing sit-ups. We've got our lower back muscles, we got our obliques on the side. So it's important to do movements that work the core all the way around. And a lot of times, there's movements we can do that incorporate the core without you thinking you're specifically doing core work. That's one thing we do at Maasto Fitness. I think a great example is doing a squat. When you're doing a squat with a bar behind you, um, free, you're not in a machine. Our core has to stabilize our whole body. So while we're working all the muscles in our lower body, our quads, our hamstrings, our glutes, our calves, we're also working our core through stabilization. So, and that with that, we're using it the way we kind of use it racing. We're holding an isometric hold, so we're really making sure that the muscles are held, because like when we're racing, we're not doing a sit up going back and forth. We're holding it kind of like in a plank position, you can almost think, when you're doing a squat. So keep that in mind as well. Core workout, it's the whole body all the way around, not just the front, because we don't want overdeveloped. But just like I said in the beginning, with that kind of mirror effect of doing bicep curls, doing sit-ups, and doing the bench press, right? We want to make sure we're working all the way around, not just the muscles we can see in the mirror. So keep that in mind. Hate to see it when athletes get injured through ways that can be avoided, and muscle imbalances is definitely one of them. Now, next week, we are going to talk about how every day is an opportunity and a chance to get better. So that's what's coming up next. And as a reminder, always at Maasto Fitness, we build strength, endurance, and mobility training for racers. Plus, we have tons of hydration, nutrition, fueling resources, monthly group coaching calls, just lots of resources for racers. And we have all different programs. So anyone who's interested, we've got something that works for you. And if you're interested in trying it, I'll actually give you a free week of our single jump training program. Just send me a message on Instagram and I'll get you hooked up. See you guys next week.